As to try and understand the need to eliminate these positions when there should be adequate funding available to employ them until the end of 2021. She informed me that at the February 9th Township Board meeting, the membership of the Wabash Township Board stated that they were not in favor of using the funds from the emergency loan to pay for the compensation packages for each paid firefighter. As such, she told me that with the direction, she will assisting the firefighters to transition to new jobs immediately. I attended that meeting and I had a different understanding of that conversation between the board and the trustee, but to the discussion and talking over each other by the board and the trustee, it is understandable why someone might have misunderstood what exactly was said. To clarify the board's opinions, I would like each board member to verbally state with a yes or no if they're in favor of using the funds in the emergency loan fund in addition to the other fire funds to continue the employment of the 3 firefighters in question until the end of the year. I believe that putting the board's stances on record for using the funds currently available should alleviate the funding concerns that led to Trustee Tyson's determination that paid fire staff positions would need to be eliminated immediately. A funding solution for beyond 2021 will still need to be addressed, but ensuring the firefighters can remain employed until at least the end of 2021 is the critical first step as needed to eliminate the stress and uncertainty they are currently experiencing. I'll go ahead and answer that question myself real quick. As for myself, I've said yes on many occasions. My concern isn't using emergency funds to pay for currently employed fire staff. It's trying to expand the department beyond our current point of 3 paid firefighters without having a sustainable path forward or a notion that we were going to have a source of funding that we can count on in the future. Without us being at a point where we have that, I personally couldn't see myself supporting bringing in more people into an uncertain situation. So that would be my stance. Brendan, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, first I would say thank you, Mike, for very much so being active in your community in not only the direct public service ways, but also accountability to our government. Yeah, Mike, we, a previous board and I, and even this trustee fought for that funding to expand our department. I firmly believe that we should definitely stay that course. I, of course, share the concerns of former board member Michelle Wietbrock, and of Chair Valentin, that we'd like to see some long-term funding actions taken, moving towards solidifying that long-term funding. We've made that fight. We've had that contention in the past. We've had to make that argument in the past. We'll continue to fight for that funding and to make sure we can grow this fire department in a responsible way.
Yeah. All right. So that was the only public comment that we'd received previous to the meeting. So we'll open the floor. I do believe John Mr. Kirchhoff wanted to speak, so I'll have him have the floor. I know his comment is a little bit longer, but it's okay.
Thank you. I'm getting some.
I see that there was some feedback. Let me see here. You're muted.
Sometimes you have it accidentally open twice on your computer, because that's happened to me before. I didn't even realize it.
Again, I am ready for the age of Zoom to end, by the way. So I think that we can all agree with that statement. We can, Board Secretary Brendan, are you okay moving the minutes first and then going back to public comment just because there was no.
Yeah, I would definitely support that. Only because we have a hefty chunk of time we can buy anybody with technical difficulties. These minutes are a behemoth, so I'm happy to move to it, folks. We'll put down one item on our agenda, and we will begin our review here, folks, of the Wabash Township Advisory Board meeting of Tuesday, February 9th, 6 p.m. Okay, pardon me here, take a breath. We called our meeting to order at 6. We did our roll call votes. Each board member was present, the trustee was present. We then moved to a time of public comment and communication. We had several questions kind of on the docket. Right now, there were questions, pardon me, board member public comment. So we ended up holding our public comment. My apologies, folks. We do have our statement here in light of the extreme emergency facing our state, and in keeping with the executive order issued by the governor, the public will not be invited to physically attend this meeting, but has the ability to view and listen via Zoom, of course. So we were then taking digital public comment as well. We actually then reviewed the minutes from the January 5th meeting. Chair Angel Valentin moved to approve those minutes. Member Wietbrock seconded the motion, which carried unanimously. We then actually shuffled the agenda again, and the trustee had requested to add perf review to the agenda and move it to the top. The chair accepted this request. We had on hand Don Meyer with Bose Law, who shared information regarding Indiana's 1977 pension fund. He provided his email address for follow-up questions, which exists in our minutes, and is dmeyer, DMEYER at BOSElaw.com. Legal counsel, our legal counsel, Ray, asked if for that plan. Don answered that there is indeed a cap that's quite similar to a 401k. I asked how much we had budgeted and built into the emergency loan for perf. The trustee answered that that we did not specify. Former Chief Mike Francis intervened to ask a relevant question. I actually ended up ceding him time. He noted that there would have to be a physical type of threshold met by the firefighters to get into such a fund. Chair Valentin asked whether we advertised retirement benefits for our paid staff, and the trustee nodded and noted that we did. We then had a public break for comment. At this point, Chair Valentin asked legal counsel to review which areas can be questioned during public comment. It's also relevant here. Legal counsel noted that public comment is limited to taxpayers residing within the township area. And they are able to question proposed expenditures, tax levies, executive annual report, or any matter on the Chair Valentin opened the floor to public comment. Legal counsel notes at this point, due to the first comment, that the township will have no comment on pending legal cases with Chief Ward, and that would have to be discussed at a future meeting. Jamie Roth was in attendance that evening, and she had emailed the trustee previously asking about the $78,000 reported as aid sent out, non-township aid. Legal counsel mentioned that this should be addressed in the annual report section, so we actually moved that later. 6 was the trustee report, where we reviewed township assistance provided in 2020. The trustee chose to speak in large part about aid distributed in 2019. The trustee read a note from Deputy Chief Lewis. He noted that the Wabash Township Fire Department had another busy year. The quote is we are at 1,174 compared to 1,316 runs in 2019. We have moved to a 24-hour shifts. We have increased training and participation with surrounding departments. We are responding to medical runs in a pandemic and taking proper precautions. And then, of course, this was actually a relayed message from the trustee. And I think we might have Deputy Chief Lewis on this evening if you'd like to correct these notes at all. The trustee goes on to note that we are working on an agreement with Nisha's Land Trust at Sandridge Cemetery. We did hire a veteran-owned company to maintain our other cemeteries. The trustee began to talk about her plan to move us into a fire district. In 2021, we would do an emergency loan to bridge the district. And she asked, is this still the board intent? How do you, the board, feel about open positions? One fire chief, 2 hired folks from last year and then 2 this year. The fire folks have come and asked for 3 this year instead. Those positions are open and we are filling them. And I guess there was a question in there somewhere, so I answered. And I noted that this was the first time she had actually presented the board, or me in particular, that this was her intent or goal to pursue a fire district alone. This is the first time that I had been solicited for my opinion on the matter. The board would be happy to have that discussion. I said the board has said that we should have meetings with experts to share their views and gain public buy-in. I noted that's my stance. We have other options if we do not spurn them. Chair Valentin, pardon me, noted that ideally we would work, not ask for yet another fire loan. We have been delayed in the process to suss out our options, and we do not want to hire people just to fire them because we do not have an established source of income. The trustee and the chair had some back and forth. I noted that the insinuation that this has been our collective plan for a while is disingenuous. The chair followed up by highlighting that for a while we have been asking for meaningful conversation with experts on the matter, and that this is indeed a different board than she started with. The trustee contended that there was a narrative at play, that we proposed this plan and it was accepted, and that there are videos of, to this effect. She asserted that the chair said he did not watch those videos. Folks, by the way, outside the minutes, that this is false. I did step in to stop that personal attack on our chair, Chair Valentin, and to correct the statement offered by the trustee. Legal counsel then interjected to halt our back and forth. The trustee continued to talk on about her longstanding intent to use 3 emergency loans, noting that nothing has changed. Reedy presented us options, and she claims that the fire district and ambulance service are the only options. Chair Valentin and Trustee Tyson come to an understanding that the chair would like to see more solid footing for a long-term funding before taking on employees' livelihoods and public servants' livelihoods. We need to make meaningful steps, he said. I then asked if we could pivot to the rest of the agenda, asking if there was anything else on her agenda for her update. She noted that she did not understand my question. Legal counsel stepped in and asked the same question again. She responded no, that there was nothing else to cover. We then go on to review the resolution with our annual report. The chair asks for her to review how she came up with the $78,000 estimate for non-township assistance granted to folks in and around the state. The average of $2,000 per household is the standard for devising how many folks you've helped, and the trustee chose to use 1,000, whereas to not overestimate. She thought that she would be helping our own people, quote unquote. Instead, we are helping folks in and around the state. The chair notes that we are still not using allocated monies to help folks in our community. The trustee contends that she does not understand the question, instead offering that board members consider the township guidelines. She notes that we have given a lot of aid. I stepped in to clarify that we are not finding ways to distribute the aid that we, the board, has allocated, noting that that was our major concern, and asked if that made sense. The trustee asked whether we should not use federal or state aid. I said that it's not either or. The chair stepped in to talk about that money and how that could have gone to other groups in the community. He then highlighted that there were a total of 124 requests and there were a total of 6 aid recipients. The trustee notes that she went to the board president and that I was directed to use state and federal funds for the pandemic. She then went on to contend that, quote, all the need was met. I know of no one who has a need that was not met. Chair Valentin notes that he has worked with people in his day job where folks did not get the aid they requested. He had to send them back to the township and they still did not receive aid. The trustee notes that she has staff and may investigate them. Chair Valentin asks counsel about approving the resolution in part. Legal counsel shares that process. Move to amend the resolution. One would move to amend the resolution. Chair Valentin asks for the trustee to state who worked on this submission. The trustee answers Tricia Foltz and I, Jennifer Tysing. Chair Valentin clarifies the process to amend. Council explains that you would move to accept the resolution and then amend and then vote to accept. I then highlighted that this was merely an estimate. She used a relatively standardized way to devise that estimate. I then asked the trustee to commit to doing the work by answering questions in a town hall format and at our regular meetings. I contended that we should ultimately advance the resolution. The chair stepped in to speak, but then I actually cut him off to redirect the question back to the trustee. She noted that it would be irresponsible for us to hold unnecessary meetings since we agreed to have counsel at our meetings. The secretary asks, is that a yes or no? She responds that it is irresponsible for us, notes that it is irresponsible of us. The chair asks if that is a no. Secretary, that's myself, move to accept the resolution at this point. Chair Valentin noted that he has reviewed the report and that it was mostly in order. Board Member Wietbrock noted that she has no questions at that time. The chair calls for a vote to accept the resolution with a roll call vote. Secretary Betts, myself voted aye. Board Member Wietbrock abstained. Chair Valentin verifies that an aye is needed in order to pass the resolution. He votes aye, but noted his concern with the non-township aid section. The motion carried. Then towards our conclusion, I asked council about the power to resolve. He noted that the best use of this power tends to be to amend the township guidelines. Chair Valentin asks if rental assistance funds could conceivably help with past month's rent rather than just the current month, which is standardized in code, if we set it up in a particular program. Legal counsel deferred to research that topic, noting that he could provide the answer not at our next scheduled meeting, but perhaps the following, which would be this meeting, the 16th of March. Chair Valentin requests the fee schedule for the council. Currently, at the time, he was on an hourly fee basis. What he proposed doing was moving to a flat fee model with 20 hours per month. Anything beyond that would be billed at a reduced hourly rate. It would be $4,500 a month, and the added time would be $300 an hour. The chair posited about $45,000 a year. Legal counsel deferred to the chair's math. We then had a preview of the discussion to move funds to cover costs of legal counsel. And then we also covered the documentation that this board has requested in some way, shape, or form from the trustee since day one. He noted that we wanted to know the number of requests for assistance, requests granted, ledgers, fire runs, etc. We discussed the future meeting dates. At the time, we were going to meet at our next scheduled meeting was February 16th to discuss the feasibility study. And I believe that was stricken from our books for one reason or another. March 16th, however, became our next meeting for the feasibility study, among other topics, clearly. We then adjourned our meeting, and those are our minutes. Do we happen to have any corrections or anything else to add or concerns with the minutes?
No. I move that we adopt the meeting minutes as written by our secretary.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those in the negative, same sign. Seeing none, the minutes have been adopted unanimously. Thank you, Chair.
All right. So I know that we had to switch around the order given that John had technical issues, but we'll jump on to public comments. I know that he was wanting to speak. John, if you want like 5 or 7 minutes or so, does that work for you?
Yes, can you hear me now and hopefully with no technical issues? Very good. Yeah. I had to switch to my phone. I don't know what's going on with my computer. But appreciate the time, and I understand, at least from the list of attendees, that the trustee is not here. Is that correct?
That's her understanding. She stated that she wasn't going to attend the meeting.
Okay. Well, I've come tonight as a resident of Wabash Township, as a concerned resident. I've been following mostly through the news media what has been transpiring with the recent events over the past, say, 6 months or maybe even a little bit longer in the township. And most of those have been centered around actions taken by trustee Jennifer Tyson. And I became increasingly concerned over time as I learned more and more about some of the various things that have been going on. And in discussing it with a few people, I became convinced that maybe we need a petition. And so I kind of did my homework and collected some facts and put them together into a petition. And that led me to the conclusion that Jennifer Tyson needs to resign as trustee. And so I have a few comments about that. And I'm just going to go through them real quickly. And then I think I'll have said what I want to say here publicly. So what I am going to state here is mostly what was stated in the petition that I put together. That petition first appeared on Friday evening, just this past Friday evening. And it noted that that Jennifer Tyson has likely lived outside of the township, in fact, outside of the state of Indiana, and that appears to be in violation of Indiana code for township governance. I noted that the board, the Wabash Township Board, has unanimously voted no confidence in Jennifer Tyson and has asked for her resignation as trustee. I noted that she fired Fire Chief Ed Ward, and it appears that she may not have afforded him his full rights under Indiana code in the process of letting him go. I noted that the Wabash Township Firefighters Association unanimously voted no confidence in trustee Tyson. And in putting those things together, I called upon trustee Tyson to resign. And that petition, since this past Friday, has garnered more than 1,240 signatures. So in less than 96 hours, more than 1,240 people have signed this petition calling on trustee Tyson to resign immediately. It is my opinion that trustee Tyson's job is to lead the township in making decisions and change when necessary. And the proper way to lead is to work with the township board and the Firefighters Association to build support and consensus for making changes. Jennifer Tyson has utterly failed to do this. She has acted contemptuously and capriciously towards the township board, the Firefighters Association, and the constituents of Wabash Township. The sum total of her actions is so egregious that her immediate resignation is the only solution. I call on Jennifer Tyson on behalf of the 1,240 people who have signed the petition to resign immediately and let someone else lead the township through the crisis that she has created. That's my statement. If there's a question or two, I'm happy to answer it.
We appreciate that statement. And just to corroborate, do you have any idea like how many of those might be signatures that came from within the township? I know that obviously it being an online petition, it's a little bit different. So
it's that is correct. So I can download a list, and the list does state the person's hometown and state. In most cases, there's a few cases where it's missing for some reason. The vast majority of them, probably about 3/4 of the signatures, are from either West Lafayette or towns, other towns in the nearby area that may or may not be in Wabash Township. Of course, a little hard to verify that. But I will also say that the petition site also seems to have some trouble updating. For example, it even has my address wrong. I've lived here 3 years. I tried to update it, and it still lists me as living in Illinois, where I lived previously. So there are definitely signatures from other parts of the country, other parts of the state, and other parts of the country. It's would take some work to track down those people and to try to determine if they're actually residents. for that matter, I believe not everyone who lists West Lafayette as an address is necessarily in Wabash Township either. That's one of the consequences of doing an online petition is it's hard to govern these things. I think what it does show is that there are a significant number of people who are concerned about this. This is a kind of issue that if you're not paying attention to local politics and you're not concerned about Wabash Township, you're not going to take the time to sign. So it is my opinion that the vast majority of people here that signed it are concerned about the situation and are likely to be residents of Wabash Township.
I appreciate you coming here, John. Obviously, it's a sad situation when the reason why so many people are paying attention is because of a situation like this. But we will continue to work forward to try to craft a better future for the township. I know that that's what I'll be doing in my role as a board member. So, all right. Are there any other public comments? I know I asked earlier and nobody wanted to speak at that time.
I don't know that anyone knows. Do they just speak on Hill or is it in the chat?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can like ask, unmute yourself. It's a little bit hard to like go through given the number of people in the meeting.
Yeah, no worries. Zachary Bale, 124 Connolly Street. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Hey, thanks everyone. Glad everyone's here. One particular thing that concerns me just outside of this, no matter where one may be today, the public record is of importance. I think we can all agree to that. And so I know we've corresponded about that before. And so it, like for everyone here, the petition, that's great. I agree. That's a lot of people. I don't have the population there. I don't know. Does anyone know the population of the Wabash Township? Was that mentioned as the percentage of people that signed this that were registered to vote perhaps, or however you want to segment it? But I know it's substantial.
My understanding is that the population is approximately 60,000, but that's off the top of my head. So the number might not be entirely accurate.
Oh, yeah.
I if I may interject, I did.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
It's the dialogue.
I did look up the number of people that voted in the 2018 election for trustee, and it was a little over 13,000 people.
Yeah.
So
that's a huge slice of people that, so that's what I'm saying. So I know it's of interest, but back to the public record, that's why it's so important. We got 2 websites now. I don't know who's backing up the other one. There's lots of email that's been flying around. There's lots of things that are the public record. So in terms of how it exists is of concern. So I don't know, is that being settled too along all this? I know there's the state, thanks. Ron's here. Obviously we've all been keeping track through Ron's reporting, but there, there's been investigations started into the township. Lawyers have been accessed. And so one being, people know me as an open government person. And so in that vein, that is of concern. And I don't see that being talked about in the larger rhetoric. So I would like to hear at least from the board's perspective on record, since we heard the minutes into the minutes again, if you could be on the record talking about, how you are handling that role of the board in terms of who's in charge of those types of records and that sort of thing. Thank you.
I can speak a little bit to it, but Secretary Brendan Betts has probably a better idea from before I joined the board. I know that that was a concern to us. We didn't feel that the information was being uploaded onto the website. That's why we actually went ahead and created our own website in a sense of wabashboard.com. And it's just so that we can put forward the information going forward. Going back, it's going to take us a little bit more time to go and collect all that data and upload it. My hope
Real
is
quick,
that
Angel, on that, do we know who is managing that server? I assume it's hosted,
for the Wabash
right?
board?
Yeah. So there's email there is my biggest thing. So there's communication.
I can speak for that
Yes.
intelligently. If you do a who is information and you look at the provider.
Yeah, so could someone do that right now and throw that
it's
into the
Jennifer
meeting?
Tyson.
Okay, so she owns it, but it's through a host of some sort. Is she the only one who has access to the server?
As far as I'm aware,
That's
yes.
our understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as the one for the board, which is separate from the trustees, it's being like, we created it ourselves, and like, so myself and Brendan would have access to it. To be frank, I think I'm the only one that's updating the website at the moment.
That's fine. No worries. Yeah. It's more of like, the communications and some of the records. Obviously, paper stuff exists in a different form, but anyway.
So paper stuff and everything. Yeah, paper stuff and everything. Our understanding is that it's under basically the trustees' ability to like share it or whatnot. So it's in the office of the trustee.
Thank you for
at least
being
for
clear.
myself. Yeah. All of our communication tends to be online over email. So, and same as always, we're subject to public records requests as well. So if there's any information that at any point anybody would like to request, that same process applies to us, and you can email us. If you can go ahead, Brendan, and put in our email in the chat. We try to be responsive as possible. We're still trying to dig up some older meeting minutes that we don't have, but yeah. I see Mike had a question. Mike, you can.
Might I interject briefly?
Oh, Brendan, sorry, my bad.
Before the COVID era, and certainly before our time, Zach, many of the documents you would seek, minutes, et cetera, would be in a binder in the trustee's office. Up until at least, I guess 16 months ago-ish, I was aware of that still being the case, at least on some level. Obviously, we've spent less time meeting there than we have previously. And I think that's the majority of what I wanted to address there. I'm sure there was something else, but we'll come back to it.
Yeah. All right. Mike, you had a question or a comment?
Yes. Yeah. So this question is something that I thought of just a little bit ago, based on Michelle leaving. Do you know, I'm sure you know the process since you were replaced in since you were replacing someone in a caucus. Can you real quickly detail out what the requirements are for replacing her, what people would have to do if they wanted to? I'm sure the people in this meeting would probably be the ones, since they're interested in meeting with the board, it being here rather, that they might be the ones more interested in actually running to replace her. So just if you could speak on that real quickly.
Yeah. If I can put you on the spot, Heather, you have more experience on that and you'd be probably able to describe the process. I'll take advantage of having our former party chair on. So.
Yeah, I've ran quite a few Wabash Township caucuses at this point. So what'll happen is within 10 days of the resignation, which I guess my understanding was officially today, I saw the post, but okay. The caucus needs to be called, and that caucus needs to be held within 30 days. The people the way the system's set up, whether we think it's all right or not, is the people that vote on that is the precinct committeemen. So the Democrat precinct committeemen in Wabash Township would vote on the replacement. Now, if anyone is interested in running for that position, they obviously need to live in the township, and they need to be a registered voter. And they would contact our new party chair, Jackie Chosnick. And I believe she said to use the tipdemchair@gmail.com. Contact her. There's a simple form to fill out that just basically asks your name and address and stuff like that. It needs to be filed 72 hours before the caucus. So depending on what date they decide to have the caucus. And really that's it. Then at the caucus, whether they do it virtual or not, I mean, we're all doing things so differently now. We've done it both ways. Usually each candidate has some time to either talk, or when we do virtual, we've had candidates make videos even and send out. And then the precinct committeemen vote, and whoever gets the majority of the votes is the next Wabash Township board person.
And this may seem like a really obvious question, but you said you had to be registered to vote. Do you have to be a registered Democrat? I know some people are registered as Libertarians, Republicans, etc.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, and everyone thinks this, so I'm not trying to, you don't actually register under a party in Indiana, but it does go after how how the affiliation is decided in Indiana. Is how you voted in the last primary.
Okay, so if you vote on the Democratic side of the primary in 2020, then you would be eligible to run.
Then you'd be eligible. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't file, but let's be honest, I don't know that I probably wouldn't win going into a Republican caucus. I don't know,
right. Yeah. I curious.
I don't think there's anything that says, now, if you didn't vote the last primary, I believe, and I'd have, that you just have to get the okay from the party chair to run.
Okay.
It's just a little better, they go.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Hopefully that was helpful.
Any other public questions or comments or whatnot? I
actually have a question, even though I don't live in the township, but it's something I think I'd like to have clarified. I have two questions.
Go ahead.
One is just clarify again on the record that there is monies available to pay these folks through the end of this year, right?
Yeah, and I can pull up data. I was hoping to cover a little bit later, but I can go over it. Our understanding is right now we had some money left over from the from the emergency loan that we took out in the 2019-2020 process. And we spent some of the money. Sorry, let me pull up the number. I just want to make sure that I give you an accurate accounting. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
While
you're looking for that, I can throw my next question at you so someone can either have it on or. So this attorney that keeps getting referred to, that costs $580 an hour, is that an attorney for the township? Or just the trustee? I'd like that clarified. And who approves that contract, and has it been approved? That was a question I had, and that's it.
Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first. So our understanding is that the trustee is for the township. The way that it's, because of the arcane nature of township systems, which, in general doesn't create conflict, but it's just so arcane. It seems that basically a trustee comes into an agreement with the attorney, but the township board appropriates the funds to pay for that attorney, for the township council. In this particular case, the line item, which includes payment for the township council, I believe it's in the order of $25,000, but it also includes payments, that's for professional services. So that also accounts for, should pay for the services that Reedy Financial does for the township, that is. So we expect that we should be needing to move money into at some point in the year from some other account, and it'll need to be approved by the board for paying for the township attorney. However, we haven't seen any letter of engagement that hasn't been approved or whatnot. So we don't know what the terms of the agreement that the trustee agreed with the township attorney. We've repeatedly asked for that information. Recently, I believe it would have been last week, so a week to the day, if I'm not mistaken, I reached out to our township attorney to ask whether there had been a letter of engagement, but our township attorney has not responded to us. Last as we know, to be frank, the trustee told us that we couldn't communicate with him and that the township attorney was not to communicate with us. So we haven't received a firm answer to that. So I can't enlighten you further than that.
I guess that's the part I don't understand. I
have to admit that I don't understand it either.
Just as an outsider that reads, I only know through what I read too. And I guess I don't understand that if it's a township attorney, how that you would be prohibited or why he is not getting back to you. So I just find that, and I don't know, maybe it allows for the trustee, to have her, I'm not sure how it works, but that's something that I think really at some point needs clarified to the public, because I hear that question a lot.
Yeah. As far as we're aware, we'd reached out to the ITA around the time that all of this situation started to become public. And it became clear to us that from what they said to us, that there can only be one township attorney and that they're there to serve both the trustee and the board. So that's our understanding of how it works. However, we can't force the person to respond to us. So we haven't gotten any response at all. So as for your first question, we had approximately on Fire Fund 1111, and I'm going to include the Fire Fund leftover there. We had about 632,000. I'm going to round to the nearest thousand here. All right. So we have about $632,000 that we should have available for this year when it comes to the Fire Fund. And that'll be 351,000 of that. Sorry, 352,000 of that would be left over from the emergency loan. We have 52,000 that is left over from Fire Fund from last year, which carries over unless the board moves it, and the board has not moved it to any point. We have 208,000 from property taxes and the certified levy. And then we have about 20,000 from miscellaneous revenue, okay? And that's what it's expected to be. Now with and I'll have to, and this I unfortunately don't have pulled up, but we did the calculation, and I can look through it because later on it'll also be important for some of the other stuff we want to discuss. We expect that even if we went in and paid back benefits and like we approved the 1977 fund at some point in the next, be it today or in the next couple of meetings, if we have the sufficient information to be able to make that fiduciary decision, that we would still be roughly about $1,000 short, which in the scope of, it's some money that we can move from a different fund if necessary. But that would be just $1,000. If we were to go back and do back pay for one of our firefighters has been with the department, I believe 9 years. And like one of the decisions that a board would have to make is whether we enroll them into the retirement benefit for the previous year. So we basically would be buying in their time served. And even if we were to do that, our understanding is that it would be within the, a realm of financially responsible decision making, that we wouldn't be needing to ask for any funds left, to get to the end of 2021. However, we do believe that we'll need to, given that there's no, sustainable future solutions set in place, we would have to ask for or possibly go into figuring out a solution for next year, which means that, for example, an emergency fire loan would be on the table. It's not necessarily the only solution out there, but it would be one of the things that we would have to consider. Brendan, is there anything else that you want to add on this one? Sorry, this was a little bit big.
No, I would just note that I would actually backtrack just a hair on the attorney front. The board did speak with 2 other attorneys that charge less than the attorney we have retained. Who we retain is the purview of the trustee. Oh,
you froze there, Brendan.
The board has their own opinion of who.
Oh. Sorry, you froze there, Brendan. If you can restart there for a second, my bad.
No worries. It is not the board's decision who we retain as counsel, and that we did talk to 2 other folks that would have been at a less cumbersome rate. So ultimately, that is the purview of the trustee who we decide to go to for counsel is not our choice, but we, as you highlighted, Chair, do allocate the funds.
Yeah.
Okay,
and we have not received,
So she does that, she can hire, or just the trustee, I guess I'll speak in general terms, can hire, but the board allocates the funds.
Yeah. And we have not received any indication as to a firm contract beyond what we asked last time. We've asked for information because we suspect that we'll have to move funds at some point and figure out financially how we're going to pay for that. But we have received no communications. And I mean, it's a tough situation. Right? We can only make decisions with the information that's in front of us, and we have received no information. So, yeah. Are there any other public comments? I know Mike Francis, I believe you had tried to speak earlier. Sorry to Yeah, I was still answering the previous question. My bad.
Thank you very much. Just to tag on to what Heather was asking. So the trustee cannot refuse to answer any of your questions.
I think that we're having technical difficulties again there.
Yeah, Mike, I was having trouble hearing you after the trustee cannot refuse to answer any questions.
The only thing that she cannot, by law, give to you guys are personnel matters. She is required by law to give out information. You email her the first time, and I'm not going to charge you $4,500 a month for this. You email her one time. If she refuses to answer, the second request goes to the Indiana Public Access Counselor. The third request goes to the Indiana Public Access Counselor, and he will take matters into their own hands. She cannot refuse to answer questions. Anybody on this Zoom meeting has the right to ask her questions, and she has an obligation by law to respond.
No,
It's the Indiana
Mike,
Public Access Counselor.
yeah, I definitely appreciate that comment. I would just say that, yeah, she can. She absolutely can refuse. It's just a question of for how long.
Well, like I said, your second request, if she refuses, you know the law on the open door policy. You know how many days she has to respond to your request. If she does not respond within those allotted days by state statute, then you send the second request to the Public Access Counselor, and they will take it over from there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike, for your public comment. I think Randall Ward, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I moved here from Michigan, and it is an interesting unit of government. So I'm just kind of curious. So really the only checks and balances you as board members have are the checkbook and the approval of expenditure of funds, it sounds like. And so you've allocated a line item budget for legal. Is there anything that prevents you from reducing that at this point in time in an effort to move funds out of that you've already committed as a control measure? And then another question, then I'll be quiet, is there's only 3 board positions in Wabash Township, as I understand it. It's clearly, I live in Wake Robin. It's clearly a really growing area. I sense that it's a township that's just more and more development, more and more runs that are being required. And so, the long-term plan is really important. And so getting back with West Lafayette, my understanding is we kind of didn't communicate, or the trustee did not follow through with some information, but we need to have a solution as a homeowner. I really don't want my homeowner's insurance policy to go up. I want coverage. It's a growing community. It just is. So appreciate what you do. I'm interested in your answers.
I'll start by addressing it. The thing that would stop us from moving that money would be whether that money has already been spent, in terms of my perspective on that. And that's for professional services. So that does include our financial advisor. I'm sure we've been invoiced, and we are likely to pay that bill. And there are other professional services we've engaged as well. She noted that in the past with remonstrances and that sort of thing, we've had some legal counsel there, bond counsel for our loans, etc. And then in terms of our power with the trustee, I mean, for the most part, Angel and I are just Wabash Township residents. And this was our way of contributing a bit to our community. And so I will say, seeing folks come up and ask public questions, seeing folks take it upon themselves like John, and like you too, of course, like other folks with no direct interest other than being a taxpayer at this point, but Mike Francis and other folks we have on this call this evening, we're very appreciative of that as well. It's good to see. It's heartening. So thank you very much for engaging. And I know it is kind of a weird way of governing, but for us, man, it is very much so the most local form of government. And that was one of the things I thought was a positive thing moving into this. And I do like that I'm able to be quite close to the folks we're impacting, and that they can share with us. I just wish that the whole of our government in this unit.
I agreed. A lot of times, our authority is very limited. By statute, we only have to meet 4 times a year. We can meet as often as we believe that it's necessary. And given the situation in the township, and how finances are, the fire situation, et cetera, there's a need for us to meet more frequently than that, but our power is limited. Our job would be a lot easier, realistically, if we had a trustee that worked with us and communicated with us. And I think that, the system isn't built for situations like this. It's built for cooperation, a cooperation that just isn't there on the part of the trustee. So, yeah.
One of the main reasons, one of the things you highlighted was working with the city of West Lafayette. We do have other options for long-term funding. A fire district alone is one option. I think it's perhaps the least desirable of our options on the table. Moving to a fire protection territory with another unit requires, of course, their complicity in that. As I understand it, our current trustee is not someone anybody neighboring us would really care to work with. And for me, that alone, seeing that we have decent long-term funding options and knowing that those options are not on the table with this trustee, even if she weren't at fault for the other things, one would then have to question whether she can proceed in her job effectively. Then you throw on top of that all of the rest. So my notion is that with the new trustee, with perhaps Jennifer acting in a responsible sense and recognizing that those other options would exist if we didn't burn those bridges, or might exist again if she steps aside. I don't know if that's a driving motivator for her. I know she said she wants to stay and serve the taxpayers in one of her statements. We'd like to see her serve us by opening new doors and stepping aside.
Yeah. Are there any more public comments? If not, we'll jump on to the next thing. I'll give it open for a second here in case anybody wants to
I got
speak.
a couple things I'd like to say.
Okay.
So my name's Andrew Spiker. I'm currently a township resident. Today I resigned from the fire department. I was a station resident here for a couple years. Probably the second most active person on the entire department. I resigned today because of the actions of Jennifer. She's created a hostile work environment that she is solely responsible for. She continues to bully not only the paid staff, but the volunteers. And anyone that kind of speaks out against them, she's been trying to retaliate against them. As the board members know, she sent out an email the other day saying that she was on vacation. Monday and Tuesday, she's been at the fire department. She tried to meet with me Monday and spew more of her lies. She kind of is trying to pinpoint the firefighters, like turn them against each other. She told me a bunch of firefighters were disgusted with me, and we're a pretty tight-knit group of people, and if we have problems with one another, we discuss it like adults, and none of them said anything that she said was true. So I wrote the hardest email I've ever had to write, and I resigned today. I feel that I can't speak for the department now, and I can't speak for the other firefighters, but I feel like this is just more of this is going to come, and I just want the public and anyone on this conversation to know that we don't want to resign. We love doing this. We love helping our community. And it's extremely difficult to know that if we resigned, the negative effects that could happen. And we all know what I'm talking about. And none of us want to see that happen. So that's just a comment I'd like to add. And then I have a question. And I don't mean this towards the board. I know your guys' opinion, and I know you guys are 100% for the fire department. And I completely respect you guys for that. But not seeing the Tippecanoe County Democratic Party publicly come out against the trustee, to me as a citizen, shows that they don't care. And I know that's not true. I've talked to some people there. They're not for it, but I would like to see them publicly come out and ask for her resignation. I know it's not a political thing. There's tons of Republicans and Democrats and libertarians that equally are against this. So I hate to see this, try to become a political thing, but she's a registered Democrat, but obviously she's not acting like a Democrat. She's not acting like a Republican or a libertarian. It's her way or nobody's way. Another reason I resigned, I'm 100% for open government. When the government's not open and you can't see what's going on is when corruption starts to happen. The actions that she had with the JC Online and with WLFI, trying to kick them off the property, is extremely rude and extremely disrespectful to all the public. She tried to, sway it that they were interrupting us and that, we didn't want them to be there. That's not true at all. They were being respectful. They kept their distance. They weren't even in earshot distance. They were on the complete other side of the parking lot, and they just wanted to talk to us after the meeting. I don't remember the date the meeting was on, but that was the article you can read out that, we didn't have a meeting and she left. I'd hate to say that she acted like a 5-year-old because I know 5-year-olds that, a little more respectful than that, but I got into a conversation with her. I didn't raise my voice. It was a heated conversation about her residency, about all the things that she's done. And because of that, she's tried to retaliate against me. So I just wanted to let you guys know what's going on here. And I really appreciate your guys' support and everyone that's reached out to me.
Thank you, Andrew, for all you've contributed to our community. It's not right what you guys are going through, what you guys have gone through. And we know that. And thank you for also putting up with it for so long, man.
It's difficult. Thank you, guys.
We appreciate your contribution to the township. I mean, and your service. Like, I mean, fighting fires isn't a partisan issue, and I mean, like, you guys are there to serve our community, and it's a very important service that you guys provide. And I think that, I mean, one of the most disheartening parts of all this process is seeing how the trustee and has treated the department and the individuals in it, because you guys are, you literally fight fires for us, and you protect us from, you're there to protect the township residents. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I appreciate the time you put into the department. I appreciate, your contributions to it. And I hope and I choose to hope that in the near future, that contribution will lead to something better. I know that it's hard to see it right now, but we give you thanks for that. You guys are, I keep saying it in everything. Every time I comment on something, post on something, anytime anybody asks me, you guys are the best asset that our township has. And that's why we're here, trying to make sure that we're standing by you guys. And I would encourage you guys to reach out to other folks, because I do want to see more people take an active stance when it comes to the situation in the township, because it's not just, us 3 board members, or now 2, and you guys firefighters that are dealing with it. It's all of our residents that are affected whenever the department isn't able to carry out its responsibilities. And it's the residents in need that are affected when we don't provide assistance. So, yeah.
If I could, this is Kevin Keckler here real quick. I want to say 2 things real quick. First of all, to hear of Andrew having to tell us this today, it sickened me greatly. There's no reason in the world someone who's dedicating all of his free time and his life to living at the fire station and respond on calls should be put in this position. When I got wind of this yesterday, I called Jennifer directly. Did not get an answer. I said, call me, and I let her know exactly how I felt about this, and that it's going to be addressed again tomorrow. Let me put it that way. But I need to make sure that we at least get out there to the public, that they understand we are doing whatever we can. We are still responding on every single call we get. But what is happening is, you take away a station resident, you've now taken away one of 2 people who live in the station overnight and respond on calls directly as soon as we get a call. If you ask one of our paid personnel to start looking for another job, you're now taking 2 of the 4 people that are at the station that can respond immediately. If you have another conversation with Joe or Drew in the next day or 2 or 3 or 4, you now potentially are taking away everyone who stays at the station who responds in the middle of the night and gets us on the road within 2 to 3 minutes. So our ability to respond and do the things that we do in a very professional manner and a timely manner are quickly going away. And it's the residents who are going to suffer. And I told her that yesterday. And I want everyone now to know we are not going to stop until we are put in a position where we can't do our job. And it's my goal to make sure that we as a group, and we're going to meet about this, have to stay as united as we can to make sure we continue to serve the community. But I need to make sure the community also knows this stuff that's happening right now is absolutely hindering our chances to do our job the way we want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I very much appreciate you sharing that. Do any of our other firefighters by chance have a comment or a view they'd like to share?
I'd just like to add a couple things, if that's okay, just for clarification.
Yeah.
Please do.
If anyone wonders, I was not forced to resign or anything like that. I resigned on my own free will. It was a very difficult decision to make, of course. Still kind of teared up about it. Probably will to be tomorrow. But yeah, just the whole situation. I'm happy to have the board is supporting us. I know the residents are supporting us. And if Jennifer is watching this video at a later date, just because I left the department doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. I'm still going to be a citizen, and I'm still going to speak out against you.
Do we have any other public comment at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
I can't see who it is, but go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't really followed what's going on with the fire department, and I don't have any firsthand knowledge on her management style or technique. But what I can speak to is this issue that she's not a resident of the township because she lives in my home, and she has since the beginning of July. Now, I'll be the first to admit she's not there very often. In fact, she spent a good 2 months in Florida. And I guess what concerns me as a faculty member is that if you're going to allege that somebody that leaves their residence for 2 months loses their residency and their right to vote in the township or the county or the state, this is concerning because faculty members routinely leave for 3, 4, 6, even a year without losing their residency. So there's this push to say she snowbirded in Florida, now no longer counts as being a resident, would have to apply to the faculty as well. And I think that's quite concerning. I'd also like to speak to the Journal and Courier, which I was dragged into, unfortunately.
Pardon me, sir. This is not part of the area that you can actually discuss in public comment in this meeting. I would encourage you to reach out to Ron Wilkins and the JNC to talk to them directly. What you spoke to previously is not really actually even germane to the agenda item, and it actually doesn't have anything to do with the 4 areas outlined by council. That resident can come and make public comment. I'm happy to accept that into public comment. As it pertains to the Journal and Courier, I don't know that characterizing that interaction is appropriate in this setting. Again, I would refer you to the Journal and Courier. As it pertains to faculty and voting rights, no one's talked about her voting rights. We're merely talking about the statutory requirements to be trustee in the state of Indiana. I don't know of many other Purdue faculty that are trustees. Now, to that end, people who snowbird in Florida, say a city council person who does that, the requirements to be on the city council are constitutionally different than the requirements to be a trustee. And unfortunately, the code, as it pertains to residency, which you can actually see in John's petition, it's quite clear. You forfeit that job. That's my personal belief. It has nothing to do with legal weight. But I do want to go ahead and kind of rebut that because it's not quite the same. Even if a faculty or a staff member were a city council person here locally, they would have a different measure and different legal requirements than this trustee does. So with that in mind, I would just direct you to the Journal and Courier for those comments and to code to kind of take a peek at what it does say about the trustee. And again, you can find that in John Kirchhoff, I believe. You can find that in his petition, Greg. Do you have any other comment as it pertains to spending decisions by this board, as it pertains to what we've brought up on our agenda for the meeting?
Well, 3 people have raised the issue of a residency, and now you're telling me that that's not germane to the question at hand. So is
Three
her
people have
residency,
talked about
that no longer an
staffing.
issue, her residency, or is it?
Hey, Greg, would you like to show payments and receipts for rent that she's actually paid? So we can have proof that she's lived there?
I certainly will.
Can you have bank statements that record that information was deposited at the time?
I do.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is not germane to the meeting at all.
I apologize.
I'm going to go ahead and, no, it's all right. I will say, as Brendan spoke, the requirements of the office require that a person be in the township to carry out decisions of the township. And I would personally advise, and we'll move on to the rest of the meeting, that you refrain from making comments like that in an open setting, because that's a big statement to make in a public recorded meeting. Anyway, we'll move on. Is there any other public comment real quick?
I do see two public comments. Two folks raising their hand. John Ranstra-Kirchhoff. I think I saw you first.
I just want to clarify just a couple of things. I'm not a lawyer. My petition is one written from the context of a concerned taxpayer and resident of Wabash County. My petition is based on a number of points. When I spoke of those points here, I was careful to use the words that are, in my opinion, likely, but I don't know for certain. So I'm not saying that there are violations of Indiana code by Trustee Tysing that are confirmed as fact. I do not know that. When I have read the code and I've assessed the situation based on the amount of knowledge that I have, and it seems likely. Those were enough things in my mind to put those into the petition. But even if one of those things is proven that, hey, maybe it was not in violation and everything was, A-okay with a particular item in that petition, it really doesn't subtract from the other items in the petitions. Or the real thing that I want to communicate is that there are now over 1,240 people who feel that she needs to resign immediately. And that is what the petition is about, is the feeling of the constituents who took the time to put their name out there as saying, I am someone who believes that she needs to resign. That I still believe that, even if, and Greg, I'd be happy to talk to you at some point and sort this out, and that's, that's fine. But even if that were to be removed from my petition, it doesn't change the other items in the petition as well. And so therefore, I still think the things I mentioned are completely valid.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Right.
Former Chief Ward.
Chief Ward. Yeah.
Hey guys, just real quick, while I could do what everyone else has done, and we could go on for hours about the drama and the stuff, the significance is simple. We just need to follow the facts, opinion aside. So in following the facts, something Heather brought up earlier about securing the attorney, she has to provide the township what's called a representation agreement. The attorney has to provide that. So, and that has to be on record as well. So, I mean, I personally don't have a problem filling out the Freedom of Information Act request to get a copy of that I can share with everybody if she won't get it to you. And beyond that, I would strongly suggest that you start following the money a little bit in terms of the emergency fire loan money. You guys have referred a couple of times to the professional services category. I know in my many conversations with the trustee that she feels as if, after having spoken with our financial counsel, that she is allowed to spend that money however she sees fit. I had asked multiple times for those funds to be put in the categories where they belong from what we had planned to spend that money on, to make it easier to follow that money and track what's there. And she refused to do so. The only thing she had said was that she would have Tricia put that amount of money in an Excel spreadsheet, and then she would just start pulling from it. But I know that some of the things that she has chosen to spend that money on are not, or at least what she told me she was spending it on, are not necessarily something that would have fallen into that 1111 fund. So it may be worth you guys just asking for those documents.
Yeah, we appreciate that actually, Chief Ward. We'll make sure to take note of that. We'll need to go through those. I mean, as we've stated previously, we often don't know which questions to even ask specifically because we're not privy to the information. We, as recent as, you know, this couple of weeks, we haven't been provided any information as to what the current state of the funds is for any of the funds at the moment. As far as that, we'll have to verify that. We checked one of the forms that I quoted earlier in the day relates to what we told the state we would be putting in the money for, and we stated that we would be putting $415,000 and that it would be used towards the 111 fund. I mean, part of the money was used beforehand before the end of last year, but we stated that we were putting all of that money into the 1111 fund. So that'll be something to take up and look up more specifically. Again, we tried getting access to that information, but we haven't received it. If it's okay, we're going to have to close this section for public comment in the interest of time. I know it's gone a little bit longer than we originally anticipated, but we wanted to make sure that we provided an opportunity for people to speak. The next item, real quick, there was a fire department update. I believe Deputy Chief Lewis or Assistant Chief Lewis is on the line. Is there any update as far as the fire department specifically goes?
Hi, good evening, Anil. There is nothing new to update right now. We are still very busy. We're averaging over 100 runs a month. We are still covering everything like we have. It is a struggle to keep the morale up with the firefighters because of all of the excess stuff that we are dealing with. But we are still in good shape as far as being able to take care of everything that we need to take care of.
All right. And before you mute yourself, Jim, I wanted to ask a question. Just I believe I've asked you previously, but like just to get an idea, like you've been with the department for a while. Like what did the previous numbers? Sorry, no offense. I'm not trying to call you old, I promise. Like previous runs, what previous years? Like what would the runs look like in previous years, just so that we have an understanding, right, as a board of. It's starting to build historical patterns. I know we want to get into doing a little bit more of that as well.
When I started out 35 years ago, we were doing less than 200 runs a year. And starting about the mid 1990s into early 2000s, when the construction boom hit, is when our runs started multiplying. For the last 4 years, we've done 1,100 runs per year, and we're actually ahead of the run number that we did last year.
Gotcha. And would you say that the department has grown or decreased in that time frame?
I'm sorry?
The volunteer department. Has the volunteer fire department grown or decreased in that time frame?
In that time frame, the volunteer fire department has decreased. When I first started, we probably had 40 active members. We have probably closer to 15 to 20 active members right now.
Gotcha. You know, I want to take an opportunity to ask that question while we have you, because it goes into a little bit of what we're going to try and discuss later on in the meeting, start to have a conversation about what township funding looks like for the fire department. And we want to cover some of that later on in the next agenda settings, but that's important, relevant information to understand where we're coming from.
Deputy Chief Lewis, you said that was 15 to 20
volunteers
we have now?
We have more than that on the roster, but right now that's what we're getting people to be able to respond on a regular basis.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate that. So that was the fire department update. The next part of the agenda is a trustee update. Our understanding is the trustee is not present on the call. I could be mistaken, but my understanding is that she's not on the call. all right. I do see one number, but I don't recognize it. I'm gonna check real quick. Give me a second, just to make sure that she's not on the call. I don't want to accidentally skip her. No, that's not the number. All right, so we can move on. Then the next item for discussion is item 7, discussion of the fire protection feasibility study. Ideally, we would have had the feasibility study presented by Township Financial Advisor Gabe Girth. However, the trustee did not allow the financial advisor to come to our meeting to present the feasibility study. So we've gone through and we've spoken with a financial advisor that was willing to take a couple of minutes of their time or a couple hours to share their insights as to the document that was created. Let me pull it up here real quick if you give me a second, just so that I can share it. I want to make sure that we're being as clear as possible in communicating with you guys, and I want to make sure that you guys can see it. All right. So to start there, we had gotten that information right before the last meeting on the February 9th. So we weren't able to present it then. We didn't have it on the agenda. We had requested that it be carried out a while before, but that was when the trustee finally asked our financial advisor to carry out the feasibility study. I'm going to share screen real quick with you guys. If it's not clear, please let me know. I can try and do my best. This document is available on the website too, so you guys can follow through over there as well. All right. As far as the feasibility study goes, the proposed unincorporated Wabash Township Fire Protection District would have like payment, or would basically fund 7 paid fire positions. So that would mean 7 full-time firefighters. And based on the original estimate, that would include a fire chief and then 6 additional employees with a range of pay as delineated by our most recent budget. In that particular situation there, so this is the document, it has just what the approved budget, the adopted budget for 2021 was. And this is in the range of $1,020,000. And this is the assessed value, so the projected tax base of the unincorporated Wabash, all right, which comes out to about $927 million, all right. This information is useful for a variety of reasons. Let me pull up here. I have to have something on the side. I'm sorry. It's technology is not my strong suit, even though I am only 23. So as far as the projected revenue that we're going to be needing there, let me pull up here. We're on this page. So it's about, you can see here, and if you can see my mouse, there's LIT certified shares would come in 2024. We would basically be saying that we would be approving this in 2022. In 2023, we wouldn't be receiving any money from that particular income. However, we would have that assigned already to be received, so it would be offset from other sources. But then in 2024, we would start receiving our levy for a fire protection district. And then in 2025, that number would seal at $195,875. These numbers are based on last year's information, and it assumes that nothing changes. Obviously, that's not how actually life works out, but it's how feasibility studies are carried out. After that point, let me get here, sorry. So you can see here the net property values, that just is circuit breaker. It would basically be cutting $250. So for the purpose of, given the magnitude of the study, we're not even going to touch circuit breaker. I just wanted to let you know that that's what this second table there is. And here, what you have is the tax rate for that levy. And let me pull it up here because I have the specific description. So that is saying basically projected property tax rate for this levy would be 10 cents out of every $100 of value for a property. All right, so and we'll get a little bit further into what that looks like for a specific household size, like for houses of different values. We're going to see here, you basically have between 2023, there's going to be a projected rate increase of $3.11% in taxes for the township. And the reason why that would be is because we would still be paying off an emergency loan, two, if I remember correctly. And then we'll have the E-loan that won't have fallen off yet, and then we'll be bringing in a new property tax. After that year, as we start closing out the emergency loans, that would go down to 123 for one of the three taxing districts, 111 and the other one, and 0.96%. So that would be decreasing a little bit from the peak, tax rate, and then it would drop off to 199, but another 1.99%, 193, 154. And so basically it would stabilize at the current level, and we'll show you later why that would be the case. So for example, here in the first year for a residential parcel, and this is in the three taxing districts that encompass the unincorporated part. For a residential parcel, it would be about $100,000, it would go up $9. A property of $200,000, a residential parcel, that would go up $40. $300,000, it would go up $66. And that's in the first year. And then you have the similar numbers for the rental and agricultural parcel, as well as the commercial parcel, and that's for the first year. Then when we go into the second year, there would actually be a decrease in the rate, again, because we're paying off the emergency loans. And you can see by how much the rates decrease there. And in the third year, you'd finally have it stabilized, so it would drop a little bit more again, and then it would go in and basically meet the current number. This is circuit breaker, so as I said earlier, we don't see a big impact. That's in the order of $200, so we're not really going to discuss it here. As far as here goes, part of the reason that this stays kind of the same when it comes to the levy that is actually provided, after the first year, when we actually end up going down towards the end, if you go to Wabash Township line, by the end of the 3-year process or 4-year process, we would end up seeing that the Wabash Township would go from having taxing unit having $136,000 and $160 to going down to $20,679. Now that money that is going down is money that primarily goes to pay for the trustee, to pay for the office individuals in the trustee's office, as well as some utilities. And I mean, part of the reason why that goes down is because the trustee doesn't have the financial responsibility over the fire department in this situation. But that's one big chunk. So that would basically mean that it would be, our township government would have to look significantly different in this scenario, because we would basically have much lower salary for the trustee, but the trustee would also be only in charge of township assistants and cemeteries and other poor relief. In addition to that, on the bottom here, you can see that we would see money coming in, and it would be $192,513. Then it would go up another $3,363, and then that would mean that we're ending up at about $195,000 for the tax levy, for the Wabash Township Fire Protection District tax levy. Just to note, a caveat: there was a mistake there that the financial advisor must have making. That 719,246 is actually one line up. But so that should be just 0. It was just a mistake, a typo that the financial advisor appeared to have made. But overall, the total distribution money would stay the same throughout the entirety of the county. But that would just give you an idea of how that shifts for all of the different units over if we do become a fire district. All right. So that was kind of it. I know that in this particular segment, I'll stop sharing here for a second. I'll go back to Brendan. Brendan, is there any questions or anything, whatnot? I know that given right now we're outside of public comments, or anything you have to add or any comments?
Not at this time, no.
All right. The only thing I would add, I mean, I'm willing to answer questions that anybody might have after the meeting. You know, as we stated, you guys can email us, you can reach out to us. But I'm answering the best as I can and trying to provide the information that isn't being forthcoming to us. So I'm trying to be able to share a little bit with you guys what that looks like in the case of a fire district. And as we've stated, you know, this is a process that would have to be approved at the end by the county commissioners. According to state law, you have to have a petition process. I'll try to add that actually to today's meeting, what that timeline looked like had it been carried out in 2021, so that you guys know what that timeline roughly would look like if carried out in 2022. All right. And we'll try to provide that for you guys that are out there watching and any concerned or interested citizens of the township. In addition to that, there is another process that could go forward. The commissioners by case law could consider it on their own. That is not like what is outlined in state code, but case law indicates that they can actually go through and approve a district creation on their own. However, you know, they'd have to do it, but you know, just to give you guys an idea of what that process would look like actually. All right. Do you want to move on to the next point, Brendan? You're muted, but I can't hear.
All right, so we discussed our feasibility study. We also now are on to actually our 9th agenda item, the resolution 2021-4.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
And we have to correct that because it would be 2021-5 because we approved the resolution earlier in the day with Michelle.
Excellent. So we will be sure to amend that.
Minor correction there.
Absolutely. So this is the resolution electing to join the 1977 Police Officers and Firefighters Pension and Disability Fund.
Yeah.
The digest reads as follows. Resolution would enroll current and future paid firefighters in Wabash Township Fire Department in the 1977 Retirement Fund, which is similar in nature to 401k and 401(b) retirement plans.
Correct. And then I'm going to pull up something here. Give me a second, because I have a recent document that I've created. So just to give you guys an idea, this is another area actually where we haven't really received a lot of information from the trustee. We've tried to get information about what that would look like, et cetera. And the trustee really hasn't been forthcoming. Towards the beginning of our discussion, she provided that information to us on the day before the last meeting and expected us to vote on it that meeting. Obviously, we didn't include it in the agenda then, given that, you know, we didn't have enough time to properly consider it, study it. We didn't have the necessary information to make any decision as to it. But we were provided some information at that meeting. And you can go through and see it. The attorney that covers the 1977 came and spoke. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I believe it's Don. But I included in on the documents that are available on the website, information that he provided us, as well as alternatives that he discussed that day. All right. As far as the 1977 fund goes, and this is outside of the board's purview, but for the interest of the community that might not understand how it works, it's something that once the board approves it or whatnot, it goes on, and the firefighters, when we're establishing a department, they would all have to pass a physical examination, as well as like mental check, or that is, you know, defined by the state, by the basically the organization at the state level that runs the 77 fund. And our firefighters have indicated that they're interested in going in that direction, and that they don't have concerns about passing the necessary examinations that would allow us to establish a 77 fund. And how that would work is for future people that get hired on, they would have to be able to pass that test or already be enrolled in the 1977 fund pension, essentially, or retirement plan, to be able to join the department. So we would basically be professionalizing our department in doing so. and establishing a much needed benefit for our firefighters who fight fires every day, and and that would be our paid firefighters, that is. Now, there's two particular ways that we can move in this direction. Ideally, the trustee or a person with a little bit more experience would be here discussing it, but I'll preview what that looks like. So we could hire them on and bring them into the fold for just their time now. We could start, say, basically enroll them starting at this point. There is a question that I have that hasn't been fully answered as to whether you'd have to go back and for certain include people all the way to their 36th birthday at the very least to make sure that they are covered, given that the requirement is in general, you can't jump into the 77 fund after you're 36. However, if you were in the department previous to turning 36 and then you create a 77 fund, there's a process for that for you to be able to, is my understanding, as to how you can join the 77 fund. And just so that, as we've said previously, there was $40,000 that was allocated in the last year's budget for the PERF plan, and there was $30,000 that was allocated this year. I'm sorry, the other way around, please. I made a mistake. It was 30,000 last year, 40,000 this year. My bad. If we were to go back and have back pay for all three of our firefighters all the way to the time when they joined the department, we did an estimate. Again, we did it ourselves since the information wasn't provided to us. And that would mean paying through the end of 2021. So basically, our every financial responsibility all the way through the end of 2021 would come up to about $128,000. The biggest chunk there, if we paid for the 6% in back pay when it comes to their employment, because the way that this fund goes is 19%, approximately 19% of their salary we would have to match, and then the firefighters themselves would put in 6% of their salary, similar to how you put a certain percentage out on 401 or 403, 401k, 403b retirement plans in private industry or public sector. But just to give you guys an idea as to what that would look like, essentially we would have about $60,000 of unbudgeted per catch up if we went all the way back and met the need all the way to the beginning of when especially Joe Wade joined the department, since he's been the one that's been with us the longest among the paid firefighters. Brendan, do you have any questions, anything to add?
Not at this point. Thank you, though.
All right. Is there any questions or anything that you want to direct towards anybody? I'm personally okay at the moment, but yeah, or questions that you want to answer later before we can vote on this.
Is that directed towards me, I presume?
Yes, sorry, my bad.
No, that's quite all right. I just wanted to make sure. No, I'm quite all right actually on this particular topic.
All right. I do want to, our original intention was that we would have a little bit more data. I think that we haven't been able to come up with the data that's necessary for us to unilaterally vote on this issue. We're going to continue looking for the information. I want to say that I want to make sure that our firefighters get retirement, because they were promised that upon hiring into the department, especially in the case of Drew and Travis. But I am optimistic, realistically, or I choose to be optimistic that the trustee won't make any rash decisions when it comes to the firefighters in this coming weeks. The funding's there, and this board supports using that funding to pay for the firefighters. And our concern is that, although we want to make sure that we can protect them and everything, we can't just rush through the process without having all the facts available to us. But I am looking forward to getting this information so that we can choose a retirement plan that will work for them and that will work for the finances of the township. With that in mind, and knowing that it's something that I want us to ideally be able to make a decision by the next meeting. I would motion to table the resolution at the time. Yeah.
I concur that we'll need to make a decision on this pretty quickly. There is still outstanding information. Of course, making something mandatory for all firefighters. I understand that that's a pretty small group, but that is something that we obviously hope to grow. So it's a larger choice, and I think it's worthwhile to evaluate it fully. With that in mind too, I'll second your motion to table it, and we can throw that into our business for next meeting in order to hold a vote on a pension plan.
Yeah, and I'll just say, this is tough for us. We would like to be able to vote on it and have the information, because we'd rather not keep dragging it out longer. But it's been a tough process, and I want to make sure that we have the right data in front of us. And we haven't had really a lot of communication from the state level, and we're going to have to do more work on our own, work that really is outside generally of the purview of the board, but that we need to do, research that would generally be presented to the board, because it just hasn't been done, and the trustee has changed their mind repeatedly as to whether they want to move forward with the 77 fund or not. I know that we're considering it, and we'll consider any other retirement plans that are brought to us, but we're strongly considering this one since it's the one that has been presented to us, and it's the one that our firefighters have spoken out in favor of. So, and that allows them also to move to other departments after they're the age of 36 too. So, it's advantageous for them professionally too. So with that, we'll move on to the 9th point of the agenda. Brendan, you're muted there.
Yes, and we actually have the presentation of our trustee plan to get 20% of the proposed district freeholders to sign petition. Quickly followed a different resolution. But
yeah, obviously. I just want to cover our bases we're going to go through. So that obviously can't happen since she's not here. Then we had the point number 10, which Brendan, you can read out.
Sure. We have our resolution to move funds to cover costs of legal counsel if agreement has been reached. That is referencing whether the board has been able to have the chance to review the agreement entered into by our township and legal counsel. The board has not seen that agreement. We do not have any certainty that there's a resolution necessary moving forward. So we would need more information on that note too. The next item on the agenda would be future meeting dates for this year.
Yeah. And so our future meeting date is April 20th. Our original agenda would have had us covering township assistance guidelines and funding changes. I hope that we can still get to that specifically, but that'll be amended to include as well as the 1977 fund resolution, which we had to table, which I'm really looking forward to hopefully being able to create a retirement plan that works for our firefighters. Yeah, and I do want to speak before we adjourn, just a comment, because I understand that some people might view it as there's things in the agenda that, that are for the trustee and she's not there. We want to be very specific and clear. This agenda hasn't really been changed in the last 2 weeks. The trustee had access to the agenda and knew what we were asking of her. She just chose not to be here. So this isn't a gotcha thing or anything like that. This was presented and shared a while back on the website, and it was posted by the trustee on her own offices. So she had clear access to what we were hoping to cover in today's meeting. Yeah, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? I think Brendan's frozen, so we might not be able to adjourn. I don't know how to do that by statute, but you see, the age of Zoom is stupid. But I will present the motion to adjourn. Oh, perfect. Yes, we have a second on the motion to adjourn. Brendan Betts wrote it in on the chat. Seeing, as we have a second and no opposition, we will move to adjourn. Hopefully in person this doesn't happen and Brendan doesn't freeze. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. As we said, April 20th would be our next meeting. And we hope to have you there, and we hope to continue carrying out the work of the department and the township.